Okay, the type of butter I like to use is Challenge Butter brand. I found Land O'Lakes works quite well as well, but this is my favorite. And it absolutely, positively has to be salted, okay? Unsalted butter, my cats don't even like, alright? Now, unsalted butter works great in sugar cookies and things like that, but you need salted for these types of cookies, for chocolate chip cookies. Now, what I've done, for this is a double batch of mine, I've used 2 sticks, which equals a cup, I believe, half cup per stick, so that's a cup, plus another little quarter cup, a little quarter of the stick, like I said, 1/8 of a cup there. Anyway, another little quarter of it. Along with, upside down box here, sorry, a quarter cup of this. Now you can either soften these up by room temperature and leave them sit out for a while, or you can nuke them in your microwave. You don't want to nuke them until they're runny. You want them to still have a little bit of firmness to them, but just enough that you can work with a large fork or something like that. If you have a KitchenAid mixer, you may not need to worry about how thick these are. But since I do it by hand, this is where we're at. Now, so along with the butter and the margarine, which is hiding down there, I've also thrown in 1 whole cup of Crisco. And this represents the oils. We're going to keep everything nice and soft in our cookie. Now, here's what we need to do. You don't absolutely have to do it this way. This is just one of the ways I like to do it. You want to kind of work these two together. What I found is each part of a cookie, just like any other type of baking, is important and integral to its own part. You need to do these things in order. Every now and then you might be able to get away with not getting it in order. But in this case, you want to work the butter and the Crisco and the margarine all together to form a nice little whipped up mix. It's very light, airy, easy to work with. And voila, we're almost there. And this is really kind of a feel thing. You're still going to see little lumps here and there, but for the most part, you're not going to see big chunks of white and then big chunks of yellow, and it's all going to kind of be blended. Okay, that's good enough. Now, the thing that you always add to your butters or your oils or whatever, the first thing you add are the sugars. And the sugar is going to interact with the butter. So, you take our dark brown sugar. There's a half cup. Okay. I like to pinch it against the side because you need to have it compacted. When brown sugar is measured, it's measured as compacted, because otherwise it just wants to lay there in a little pile. To get the amount you need, you want to do that. And you'll notice when it goes in the bowl, it's a little shell. All right, there's one. Now we're going to need 1.5 cups of this, so it'll be 3 of these. I use a half cup measuring because it's just the right size to get into the container I like to use, which is also a container meant to help keep brown sugar soft. There's 2 of those, now a 3rd. Okay, close this little guy back up and get him out of the way. Now we need regular sugar, and here is where the Morena sugar that I really love comes in. You can use plain white sugar. Domino's is fine, except the granules are a little bit too fine, I believe, in Domino sugar for this. You want something that's a little bit heavy on the grains. You want to be able to get that little grittiness in there. That grittiness is one of the things that's really, really good in a chocolate chip cookie, is that gritty flavor of that salt. I mean, sugar. Okay, there's that. Now, we're not done with sugars. You may think that these malt balls here just represent a candy, which is fine. I love malt balls. Malt is fantastic flavor, by the way. But they work really well as a sugar, so you want to put them in with the sugars. You take your malt balls. I use a cup, and then I kind of go just a little bit over than the cup. Put this in a baggie. You can use a blender. You can use any type of, anything you have to break these up fast, you use. Me, I take a little kitchen hammer. Crush these little guys up. And it's really up to you how fine you want the malt to be in your cookie. I've tried it multiple ways. The latest I've done really has gone back to a finer grade. And once you've got it about that far, you can either leave it like this, if you want big chunks of it in there, or you can roll on it. Take a little bit of a roller to it. Just enough to break it up. Doesn't need to be an absolute fine powder. Can be, if you want it to be. I've done that too. That's about the size of chunk I like to use right there. I'm going to put my hammer and my roller away. Okay. Oh, that's good. Oh, that's good stuff. Dump that in. That's prime stuff. That's in on mine. Okay. Now we have sugars and oils in the bowl together. Now we start mixing it all together. And at times you'll find with these types of cookies that I don't have enough liquid in there. There's so much dry stuff. It's just not gonna make it. It's gonna be too dry. I'm not gonna be able to work the dough. And there are some harder doughs, but this is not one of them. This is a relatively good one. Relatively easy dough to work. And it's kind of neat when you're making certain cookies to see that where other things will have come in. When I make a cookie with molasses, when I'm done with this particular stage, it is exactly Mary Jane candies. So, no, I don't mean marijuana. I mean the actual old-timey treat. So, now this is going to be a little lumpy because I left the malt that way. So don't worry, there's nothing wrong. You'll see little granules. I left the malt just enough that it'll pick up that. So now and then when you bite into it and you get a little bit of malt. But there it is. It really is kind of an ugly looking thing right now, but it's a brown, just a brown slurry basically is what it is right there. What that quite looks like there, basically. That's that point. Okay. Now that reaches this level. This is where all your flavor comes from. If you could smell this right now, what you're getting up is what the real powerful flavor of just sugar and butter and all the stuff that your stomach probably shouldn't eat constantly, but still it's good. Now we're going to add a little more moisture, and this is where the liquid part comes in. Eggs. And as I believe I said earlier, I like to use my sister's hen's eggs. One, because they're free. Two, of course, they're not technically free. I always give cookies back to her, so I guess in a way it's kind of paying for the cookies. Kind of a barter system. But these eggs are as big as I can get them from her. And trust me, the way eggs are nowadays, a large is considered now as what a medium is. I try to get extra large, as big as she can get me. And if you see I'm using a paper towel here, it's because I don't want all the egg stuff to run everywhere. So first we're going to take the eggs, and you'll find with farm fresh eggs that they are way thicker on the shell. They don't break as easily as the ones you get at the store. They're a little tougher, just in case it was needed for another purpose than my cookies. I can't think of any purpose more rewarding and deserving than that. Now, I wash my hands. You don't have to film me wash my hands if you don't want to. Okay, back from the sink, all clean, and don't worry, I had Elron wash that bowl he licked after we was done. Anyway, vanilla, and again, if you use artificial vanilla, you're not going to get the flavor. If you don't use a good pure vanilla, you're not going to get the flavor. I like this one because it has the lowest alcohol content of any of the real vanillas that I've found. And unfortunately, this cookie takes 3 teaspoons. If you accidentally go over or under, don't worry, it's not that big a deal. Vanilla just helps bring out all the flavors all the more, so actually if you use more, you'll probably get even more of a deeper flavor. Anyway, didn't quite get the third one in all the way. There we go. And this stuff is like liquid gold now, so it costs about as much. Trading this stuff on the stock exchange. Okay, done with our expensive container. That's a very small step. Obviously, all we did was add 2 ingredients, but we're going to stir again. Now you're going to work the egg through as well as the vanilla. And various chemical reactions take place as this thing goes along. Proteins in the egg. And you also notice that if you whip this, and I mean whip it good, if you whip this thing good, you'll see it and feel it become kind of a fluffy. because you're technically beating eggs. If you ever beaten eggs with a whisk, you know how it kind of goes. You're sort of doing that. So this becomes kind of a light, very fluffy texture. Yeah, that's good. Now, some people do this in various orders. You can put the dry ingredients all together if you want and mix them before you put them into the moist part. It depends on the cookie. Some cookies it doesn't really matter. This cookie, it doesn't really matter which way you do it. The first thing I do is when I get to this stage, now it's time to preheat the oven. So we're over here to our oven. Sorry, get my pans there. We'll go over here to the oven and 375. Start. If you have small children in your home, you want to be sure you make sure none of them have gotten in the oven like Hansel and Gretel. Get our oven going. Doesn't take long to heat up. This is a gas range. Prefer that because instant heat. Get my pans all the way again. They keep getting all the way. By the way, the type of pan I use doesn't have to be an expensive one, but it is an air bake pan. The air will flow in through here, escape through these little holes, and it really helps make the heating surface way more even and not get scorched in various places. So you can cook it a long time without it really being burnt to a crisp. Another thing, it helps the cookie not fall apart. Okay, here's our dry ingredients. Not a whole lot, huh? First thing is baking soda. The baking soda is a riser, not pulverizer, because I would never put him in a cookie. That's disgusting. We're going to use 2 teaspoons of this. This helps the cookie raise up just a little bit, not a lot. It's not yeast, but just a little bit. Salt has a similar property to it, but the main thing this is for is preservation, and it kind of evens out the overall just insane sweetness of a cookie. You need a little bit of salt in there. 1 teaspoon of that. So 2 of the baking soda, 1 of the salt. Now, this, again, I believe is one of the main reasons why my cookies come out the way they do is the flour. So the King Arthur unbleached flour, it is a heavy flour. It's not like a cake flour, it's a good heavy flour. And if you felt the weight of that, there's some weight to that cup. So we're going to put 4 of these in here. That's right, folks, 4 full cups. Plus it's fun to watch the powder. Not Susan powder, again, that would be disgusting. And that was a rare reference. You might have Jeopardy that one. Okay, there's the 3rd cup. 1 more! And again, you'll see I'm wiping it off on there because I like to do with this like I do the brown sugar. I compact it. Again, that may make the cookie a little bit drier, but it also makes the cookie a little bit thicker, a little heartier. You don't end up with those cookies that you go to pick up and they just flop and fall over sideways. I hate those things. Okay, 4 cups of really good flour. In a pinch, you can use Pillsbury. They're all-purpose flour. Not too bad, but this is still the favorite. Now, again, this is where if you use a KitchenAid or something, this is a whole lot easier. I do it by hand. Start in the center. You work your way out. The flour will grab the moisture as you go along. So pretty soon you want to start beating down the sides a little bit, very carefully, because if you do this too fast, you're going to have flour absolutely everywhere. Keep in mind, flour is very dry. Work it together, very, very lovingly, as you notice. You want to like the cookie you're baking. You know, you want to have an interest in the cookie that you're baking, for some reason, anyway. For me, it's because I like to eat, man. Come on, seriously. It's like Aretha Franklin at a Waffle House. All right. As an homage to a Riff Tracks, by the way. In case the guys are listening anyway. Now, the flavor of the smell, if you can actually smell this right now, is very much like molasses. And it's because of the dark sugar, the regular sugar, not the dark brown sugar, but the actual dark organic sugar, the natural sugar that I use. It ends up having a very, very, very fragrant fragrance. I don't know what the word is for that. Very palate satisfying fragrance to it. Much like molasses. If you enjoy molasses at all, I make another chocolate chip cookie using molasses, and I use black strap. I find it's the best overall flavor. Very deep. And the thing about this cookie is, if you compare this with pictures of cookies or other cookies you may have made, this is a way darker dough. I mean, this dough is dark compared to what's called a Nestle Toll House cookie, or a Toll House cookie of any kind. You're looking at very light. It's all because of the brown sugar and the Morena sugar that I use. Okay, when you're convinced that you've grabbed all the flour, you haven't missed a big chunk of it on the bottom, and you get down there when you're putting them on the pan, you're like, oh crap, there's a whole bunch of flour on the bottom. Okay, technically this dough is ready. I mean, if you didn't worry about the eggs, you know, and what eggs might happen in an egg if you didn't, salmonella, if you hadn't cleaned yourself, you could just simply eat this. Now, here's the dough. It is sitting here. As you can see, it's a nice golden brown. The dark brown has lightened up quite a bit because the flour has gone in there. Really nice texture. You can see little tiny chunks of the chocolate from the Whoppers that are in there. Don't worry about that. That's going to, for the most part, melt away in the oven. They're not necessarily meant for baking. So the chocolate around that malt is just going to dissolve into the cookie, and it helps give the cookie even a richer flavor. So I'm going for deep, rich flavor. I don't want a chocolate chip cookie when you hear like, the only flavor I got at all was the chip. You want the dough to taste good too. Okay, 2 ingredients I didn't have to make. Here we go. Bag of Toll House semi-sweet chips. And you can use, woo, almost got away. Never make it a friend, never leave. Yes, a whole bag. Remember, this is a double batch of cookies I make. So really, one whole bag is not that much. And I don't like to add both these and the M&Ms at the same time because it's hard to work this through the dough. It's hard to find each one being consistent with the amount of chips. You want to be as close as you can. You don't want a cookie with no chips, another cookie with 53 of them in there. So I start this way, and you'll notice if you're doing this by hand, at the bottom is where, of course, all the chips want to go. Remember, gravity is still a law. All right. Get some more chips over in this little corner here. Make her happy. All right. Okay. The only part of my baking experience you're not really getting the experience right now is normally the music you can kind of hear in the background. I would have blasting at ear-splitting levels right now. Okay. Anyway, now we're going to add this little ingredient. You can use any M&M you want. I've experimented with multiple kinds. The minis are really, really good if you use regular sized chips. If you use mini semi-sweet chocolate chips, which of course Nestle makes, then you can use larger ones of these, which I did for July 4th. I had a big bag of the red, white, and blue M&Ms, regular size, and my wife actually said that it might actually taste even better, be even better that way. But this is the one that is my signature cookie. Now, I have a nerve damage in my left hand, so it's very hard for me to open these bags. So what I usually do is, when I get to a point of complete and utter frustration with the bag, oh, I got it. I just take a pair of scissors and slide it across the top of their easy open bag. Yeah. Now, you can use part of this, you can use some of it, you can use like a quarter cup. No, stuff the whole thing. Hey, do I look like I don't like to eat cookies? Come on. Alright, now these are even harder to work in than the chips because they're slick. If you're not careful, you'll have M&Ms flying all over the place. So you gotta slowly get them into the dough. Now the dough, the texture of this dough should be at this point soft, a little bit of spring back to it, and still a little sticky. Not real sticky, not that you can't let go of your fingers at any point, but you want it to have a little bit of stickiness to it because these M&Ms will not stick otherwise. If you don't have that, if your dough does not grab the M&Ms, then more than likely it's a little too dry. Now at this point, you can try doing a few things to remedy that, but I wouldn't recommend it. I just leave them dry. You can try putting more butter in, but at this point, butter's not going to interact right with what's in there, and you're going to end up with kind of a greasy mess. But if you've done everything at least close to the way it's been done here, you should be fine. Then we cut the chicken. Oh, sorry, Julie chopping that. Okay. For all intents and purposes, this is our cookie. Like I said, at this point, if you didn't worry about the eggs, this would be very, very good just to eat as is. Alright? Now, here's how I like to do it. I take my pan, grab the first one. The oven is only 5 degrees short up. Oh, there it is. It's up to temp. Very good. As you can see, our trash bowl's starting to pile up. Now, I've tried different things to put this on there. Big tablespoon, use your own hands, teaspoon. The best thing I've found is an ice cream scoop. Not the kind with the lever, but one that doesn't even, just a big old ice cream scoop. All right, and we'll show you how to work with that as well. Now, if you watch the fork here, this will show you the texture of the dough. Put the fork in straight down. Pull it straight up. Do you see a whole lot? There's not a whole lot of dough in that. Just tiny little chunks that were there from when I stirred it. So the dough is not too sticky. If it was really, really sticky, it would just be sticking all over this thing right now. So we've done a good dough. And don't rule out the fact that humidity and temperature play a part in the ambient air around you. Is it 72 degrees? Is it 70? Is it 65? Is it 84? Is the humidity up here or down here? Those all make a difference, along with altitude too, if you happen to live in the mountainous regions. You know, like, where Sauron is and whatnot. Okay, we take our scoop into the dough, and I like to pinch it against the side, not real hard. Leave just a little bit over the edge. Drop that onto the pan, and there is a cookie. That is ready to bake. Now, this one, if you'll notice, I got a little bit too much sticking out the side there, so you flick off a little bit. And you play with these as you go along. You do want them to be relatively uniform. That one looks a little shy, so we're going to add a little bit more. You want them to be relatively uniform when you put them in the oven, because otherwise you're going to have some cookies that are baked well, some cookies that are too crisp, some cookies that didn't come out right. So you want to get as close as you can to all this. Okay, so there's no reason for you to watch and put all these. Okay, now you'll notice I'm actually moving bits and pieces of dough around. It seems odd, but it's either a complete OCD of mine, which I wouldn't rule out 100%, or simply the fact that you learn over time. You know how many chips a cookie needs to have. You know how many M&Ms a cookie needs to have. And if you don't have the right amounts in there, if it's not even, then you feel really gypped when you go and get a cookie like, that didn't have anything in it, man. Or Chips Ahoy always used to say, 1,000 chips in every bag. Okay. I call those done. Oh, I was alerted by my production staff that I needed to show you the fork I'm using. I don't have a KitchenAid mixer, sorry, I want one. It's been on my Christmas list for several years, but Santa's too fat and lazy to get it to me. So, here's the deal. This is not a normal size fork that I'm using. There's a normal fork. There's a normal dinner fork compared to this, okay? This is an oversized fork. I got them at Walmart, frankly. Better Homes and Gardens makes them. I'm sure you can get them online. You can probably get them bigger than this. You want at least 4 tines, though. Three tines maybe just isn't enough. Okay. I'll put that one back in there since my hands have touched cookie dough. Okay, into the oven it goes. And we're going to set the timer. And this is important too. You learn bake times. 14.5 minutes for these works out really, really well at 375 degrees. If you want them a little more done, you can go 15. It's okay. You can go 14 if you want them to be even softer. You don't want to go outside those parameters too much, or you end up with a cookie that starts either tasting burnt or it's just gooey and nasty, and you don't want that either. Into the oven right there in the middle rack. Mark out right in the top rack. We start our timer. Okay. Now we're going to have to take a break for a second. My cameraman can pause it while I get ready for my musical interlude. Okay, now this is my musical interlude here. This little riff is very, very important to me. I used to be able to play the guitar until I had nerve damage in my left hand, so now I play the broom. Alright? So bear with me through my musical interlude here. Put skulls on there. Okay. By the way, this is DJ Ashma from 6 a.m. We'll be going the lead on this. I'm playing along, There we go. Just gotta do those things every now and then while you're baking, you know. The little quirks I have. If you're a cook and you bake a lot like this, you probably have quirks, trust me. Okay, now before we go any further, I'm going to show you something here my producer pointed out to me that I should recommend that I mention here. You'll notice the cookies, how many I've got on this particular sheet. You don't want to bunch the cookies too close together. You want to leave about a cookie width apart, because this is going to expand in the oven. It's not going to shoot across the pan, especially since we use the right amount of flour. If you don't use the right amount of flour, you have too little, they will do that. They'll flatten out and spread all over the place. Use too much, they'll rise up and you'll have a little biscuit. Which some cookies that works well in, like snickerdoodles and things like that. But not in a chocolate chip cookie. You don't want a puffy one, and you don't want one that's all flat. You want one that's just about the right thickness, the right texture, good stuff. So spacing is very, very important. And our first batch is almost out of the oven. Okay, this batch is done. Now, there's the cookie. You'll notice that as it sits here for a little bit, I like to leave these sit on here at least 8 to 10 minutes on the hot oven, on the hot pan. They'll just slowly cool, which allows the insides, especially these middle ones, which never ever get cooked as much as the outside, just think about it, to cook a little bit more and firm up. They will drop just a little bit, but not much. They're going to stay close to that thickness, which is exactly what you're after for a cookie. So, I think those will be pretty tasty. Hopefully this has been informative and a little stupid at the same time. Yeah, if you got a question about something, here, a little question. Okay, now we've waited the appropriate amount of time, about 8.5, 9 minutes. Now we're going to take the cookies off of the pan. See how smooth and clean that came off? It's still hot. It's still very soft. If you tried to pick it up and eat it, you'd burn yourself. But it has just enough rigidity to hold up. And now you can use a cookie rack or something like that if you want. I find that just plain old cheap 20-year-old giant plates actually will work fine. What I like to do, there's multiple ways you can cool this. You can just leave it sit out room temperature and let it cool for hours. That's fine. If you want to be able to put it away into a Rubbermaid container or something faster, or you just want to eat them faster, here's a neat little trick. It's called a freezer. Since they've cooled a little bit, they're not rock hard. The plate's not, not too hot. You can put them in there. You can put them in there for like 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. You can leave them in there an hour if you want. The longer you leave them in, the more you'll have to let them sit on the plate after they come out before you can remove them. Otherwise, they will be frozen to the plate. They won't let go. But that's a neat little trick you can try. And I think that just about concludes it for our tutorial. I want to thank my wife Jen for being the camera person and for putting up with my my guitar solo. So 20-minute guitar solo. So hope it helps.